I've been using DALL-E now for quite a while. I started with DALL-E 2 back in April of 2022, and now inside of ChatGPT 4, we have access to DALL-E 3, and it's a whole lot more useful. A couple of years ago, it was really hard to get anything good out of DALL-E. Now you could get really useful things out of DALL-E inside of ChatGPT 4, but you do have to know how to prompt it the right way. So let me share with you a 6-part prompt that's pretty simple, and you could follow this formula every time you want to generate an image inside of DALL-E. Again, you do need access to ChatGPT, the paid version of ChatGPT, to get access to DALL-E 3. First, you need to be very descriptive with DALL-E. The details really define how this image comes together. So it really picks up on those details in the text. So instead of saying, draw me a picture of a cat, it's much better to really flush out this prompt. A fluffy cat with green eyes sitting on a windowsill at sunset. And I'll talk about some of these extra little pieces that I'm adding here to DALL-E every time I give it a prompt. But being descriptive is the first thing you got to keep in mind. Now, the next thing you want to do is you want to mention the image type. So you could specifically say, create a photo or illustration or oil painting or sketch or a drawing. You want to say that as part of your prompt. And I'll walk you through how to put these pieces that I'm covering here together and in what order, but keep that in mind. So for instance, if you say watercolor painting of a serene lake view at dawn, you're going to get exactly that, a watercolor painting. You're not going to get an illustration or a sketch. And there's also a custom DALL-E GPT that they've created, and I'll show you that in a little bit. It makes some of these pieces a little bit easier, but we still want to follow the same formula. Next, you want to set the scene, which has 2 parts to it. First, you want to define your character, and then you want to describe the specific setting that character is in. So for instance, a medieval knight, that's your character, standing guard outside of a stone castle covered in ivy. That's your setting. Very defined, very descriptive. Now, next part is you want to emphasize key features. So if a certain part is critical, you really want it in there, you really should define that as a key feature, because sometimes you may get lucky and it may work out that way, but most of the time you really need to define that key feature. For example, let's say we're making a logo. Here's a good prompt for a logo. A logo with a bold golden eagle clutching a silver compass. The eagle is the primary focus. So that's where I set the primary focus. I told her where to really put the emphasis for this image. Now, sometimes you could also use analogies and comparisons. So sometimes referring to something similar that DALL-E or ChatGPT might know, it might help you to get better results. So here's an example. A landscape reminiscent of Van Gogh's swirling style showcasing a bustling city square. You could also use color descriptions too. So if you have a specific color in mind, a color scheme in mind, mention that in the prompt. So for this beach scene prompt, it says dominated by shades of turquoise, gold, and coral pink. You could see actually using very specific color here in the prompt. Now, before I share this formula with you, the last thing to keep in mind is this is all taking place inside of ChatGPT. That means you could have experimentations and revisions inside of Chat. So you don't really have to have the perfect prompt on the initial test. You could simply follow up with another prompt, tell ChatGPT to make those tweaks, to make those revisions, which is really, really useful. This really sets it apart from any other tool that exists. Usually in other tools, like Midjourney, for example, which is the leading text-to-image AI platform, you have to get the prompt right. You're not going to have this back and forth revision. And they recently also gave us the ability to edit images right inside of DALL-E. So you could actually select part of an image right inside of DALL-E, type in a new prompt, and it will add or subtract from an existing image that it creates, which is really useful. So here's the actual formula, and I'll put it in the description so you could think of this and use it every time you craft a prompt for DALL-E, and just these 6 small pieces. So the very first part is image type. You want to specifically say what type of image you want as the first part of your prompt. So a photo, illustration, drawing, we talked about that before. The second part is you want to define the subject. So that's your main subject. As we mentioned before, like a fluffy cat, that's your main subject. Then the third part is key features. So we talked about green eyes, for example, in our previous prompt. Now, the next part of the prompt is we want to define the setting. So again, remember in the beginning prompt, we mentioned the background and the environment. So it was the windowsill. And then we want to define the color and the mood, which could kind of be combined. So in this case, it was sunset with warm hues, and that kind of set our scene. And then we have style, which is optional, but you could describe a very specific artist style and it's going to do its best to follow that. And we looked at Van Gogh for an example before. And then we want to emphasize something. So remember, if you want a very specific thing to really stand out in your image, you really want to mention that in your prompt so it could actually pop. So now that we have that prompt formula, let me walk you through some of these examples and you'll see how I put it together. Illustration of a fluffy cat. So illustration is our type, the very first part of the prompt. Then we have fluffy cat, that's our subject. And I mentioned green eyes, that's the specific feature. Windowsill at sunset with warm hues. That's kind of our setting and our color combined, reminiscent of Van Gogh, and that's the style. And the cat is the primary focus, and that's the part where we emphasize what we really want to make pop in this specific image. So we use all those 6 parts of the formula, and we want to get as close as we can to using the 6 parts in every single prompt. And if you use that simple formula in that order, because it will prioritize things in that order, it will usually give you a much better result, closer to what you're looking for, than if you are not as descriptive and don't give it as much details. So let me show you a couple other examples here with the prompt on screen. I'm going to use the same formula. So photograph of a sleek modern train gliding through a snowy landscape at sunset with cool blue and white dominating the scene, capturing the essence of speed and technology. The primary focus here is the train. Here's another one, an oil painting this time, a quiet ancient library filled with towering books, a single glowing lamp using warm rich hues to invoke sense of history and mystery. The intricate details of the book and the shelves are the primary focus. So again, I'm using a little bit of all those 6-part formula to get exactly what I'm looking for. And I'll also include some other prompts below so you could copy and paste and study the 6-part formula. Now let me show you this DALL-E specific GPT, because you'll use DALL-E usually inside of ChatGPT. But if you go to the Explore GPTs tab, as long as you have the paid version of ChatGPT, you'll see DALL-E over here. This is the one that they created, ChatGPT created, and there's a few different things inside of this DALL-E GPT that you don't have inside of regular ChatGPT. So you may want to use it here. So right over here, right off the bat, you could choose different types or different styles for your image. So you don't have to know exactly every single time what type of style or image type to choose. This will help you with that. So you have pixel art here, for example, and if you click it, you can see this starts your prompt. Remember, the first part of the prompt needs to be type. So these are the different image types. And this is a good way to get them and see lots of different options. And over here, you also have aspect ratio, which I did not include as part of my prompt, but this could be the 7th part of the prompt if you need it as part of that formula. So by default, every time you create something inside of DALL-E, you're going to get a square aspect ratio. If you don't want square though, you could actually use these different options, like you could choose widescreen. So then it's going to be a wide aspect ratio. So this is great for like a YouTube thumbnail, for example, that's the movie type size in widescreen. You could also choose this vertical aspect ratio. So if you're creating anything for a vertical platform, a marketing asset that needs to be vertical, this could be another option. So these are the 3 different types of sizes that you could get with your prompt just using the simple format. Or if you're using ChatGPT and not this custom DALL-E GPT, you could just copy and paste it into that prompt. And a lot of people use this DALL-E GPT. Is one of the most popular GPTs in the GPT store. So this kind of helps you flush out your prompt a little bit better. And if you want to really dive into DALL-E 3, we have an entire DALL-E 3 mastery course. This is a 21 tutorial course with downloadable prompts and downloadable resources. And you could access this at skillleap.ai, and I'll link that below in the description. And we also have other courses on other creative tools like Midjourney, which is a DALL-E 3 competitor. It's another tool that's worth a look. We have Canva Magic Studio, a complete design platform powered by AI, a complete course on that. And if you're an entrepreneur, we have an AI-powered design course specifically for entrepreneurs. So this will teach you all the different tools in the world of design that you could use in marketing and different types of assets for your business. And all these courses I mentioned, including everything else, we have over 20 different courses, are all included for one low monthly price. You don't actually ever have to buy individual courses. You get access to all of them, community section, all the downloadable resources, prompt libraries, and I'll link that below as well if you want to learn more. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one.